Wendell Harris Jr. made the movie Chameleon Street in the 1980s. It tells about the life of Doug Street, a real-life man from Detroit who in 1978 was installing burglar alarms when he seized on a path to upward mobility through impersonation. He impersonated first a journalist, then a Harvard-trained gynecologist who actually performed 36 hysterectomies. Then he impersonated a Yale student and then a lawyer. He was arrested and jailed for fraud. Wendell Harris read his story in a newspaper and bought the rights to make a movie out of it, which won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance in 1990. But the movie was not distributed and went underground. It has been re-seen this year, though, both at Sundance and Marfa, where we caught up to Wendell Harris on May 2nd. Would you give me your name?
Amira de la Garza. I teach at Arizona State, and I've been using this film for over 15 years when I teach in my classes about identity and about communication. And the thing that fascinates me is that he does so well what the rest of us pretend we're not doing. And I think that's why his character incenses so many of us, because he's our shadow. He is doing what the rest of us are trying to do and pretending that we're not trying to do. And I'd like to see, that's how I've been teaching it, that's what we've been talking about. And I wonder what you feel about what I've just said, because otherwise I may have just made that up.
No, I mean, I think you're right on the money. Having lived with this guy for so long, there are different, as with Hamlet, you can come at him from different directions, but you hit on the key thing, which is, identity. And that is, someone, I don't know who, but someone once said that identity and betrayal are the two major human themes.
It won the Grand Jury Prize at Sundance in January 1990.
1990,
right.
Okay. And my understanding is after that, 20 years or 19 years between January 1990 and now, it's had an underground life.
Yes.
So how is the writer, director, and star of this film, do you account for the invisibility on the one hand of the film and the underground life of the film?
Sometimes when I talk about this, people think that there's something wrong with me because they don't want to really accept that works of art, like human beings, can be suppressed. And to say in this country that we're living in, America, the greatest country in the world, the greatest country in history, and yet still, people, ideas, works of art are suppressed.
Not just underground.
Well, it was quite immediate because, we won the Grand Jury Prize in January 1990, and then I proceeded that March to go to Hollywood. We still, at that moment, did not have a distributor, and we didn't get a distributor from Sundance. And so I went to Hollywood to find a distributor. If you want to suppress something, all you have to do is make sure that it doesn't get distributed. So Chameleon Street immediately became a distinction because we had a situation where a feature film, an independent film, was the remake rights were purchased by Warner Brothers in July of 1990, and for $240,000, and yet no one would distribute Chameleon Street. So there was a push to reconfigure, recalibrate the movie into either an Arsenio Hall or a Will Smith or a Sinbad new version. But there was no interest in Chameleon Street itself being distributed.
As you had created it.
Exactly. Way they're not even really remaking the movie.
Yeah.
So what does that all add up to?
Yeah.
So
right. Well, it's a subversive piece of art, as most wonderful art, as the best art is always subversive. But it's almost like the question that you were asked about Barack Obama seems to sort of frame this idea that we live in a quote-unquote post-racial culture. Do we, in your opinion?
Well, you know, this idea about post-racial is, to me, it seems as large a canard as politically correct, or, I mean, I just don't quite understand what we're talking about. I mean, I have heard that, and when I hear it, it's like, how does that apply to reality? I mean, who is spreading this? Maybe you've seen a movie called Weekend at Bernie's. It came out the same week that Chameleon Street came out. And everybody and their grandmother knows Weekend at Bernie's, and it got a couple sequels too. Well, Chameleon Street, you can walk all over the world and say, have you seen or heard of Chameleon Street? And it's, no.
If this were a story about a white man, this might have gotten a lot more, to use the media's favorite word, traction.
I started getting phone calls when the Leonardo DiCaprio movie, Catch Me If You Can.
Right.
You know, when that came out, I started getting phone calls. Wendell, Spielberg ripped off your movie. But, you know, it's,
You're right.
you know, there you have, you know, if you can package it in a Caucasoidal cubed way, then, you know, then that will get media marketing support. If you are in any way empowering the masses, if you're in any way giving the masses more tools, then you are circumscribed. You know, we can sit there at home and watch Jackass, that, or Punked, or whatever. You know, you're not being empowered. I don't know, it would be difficult to find an entity on the planet, or certainly in this country, that is more suppressed than the black male.
I'm not part of this, but if you add that it's black, it becomes dangerous politics.
Yeah,
whereas,
and class is the thing you don't get to touch. You know, even, I mean, if you think race and class, you know, I mean, class is that thing most suppressed in the culture.
It has been miraculously suppressed. And, you know, even the 4-year odyssey of getting the film onto DVD, you know, the majority of feature films that go to DVD, a year, maybe a year and a half, 4 years is indicative of the, you know, the battle to get the thing into a DVD format.
Into distribution.
Yeah, exactly. And then,
distribution.
Right. Whatever. Shrek 3 or Terminator, right? Terminator now is Salvation now. And, you know, all of these films that, you know, ultimately are not empowering. Tennessee Williams put it, you know, the culture of death is essentially what is being pushed. And if you are empowering, well, that's the opposite of